Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 607, 607, November 14th, 2018, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Gonna be taking out that trash here in a little while and having me some chicken. Every Wednesday I take out the trash and I have chicken. Alrighty, let's get to the news. Well, it looks like little Marco Rubio is now taking issue with the claim that there was no voter fraud. Wow, that's amazing that any commentator can get on TV and claim there was no voter fraud. There's voter fraud in every election, whether it's for the local mayor, dog catcher, treasurer, it doesn't matter. Local races, county races, statewide races, federal elections, going back to the very first election we ever had. There's always been some unlawful activity going on in elections. Not just here, but everywhere. And everyone knows that. To make the claim that there's no voter fraud or no illegal activity going on around elections is crazy. And everyone knows it. The question is how much? And who were the instigators? You know, a lot of people... they do catch people for voter fraud. I mean, to say that there's no voter fraud or no illegal activity going on in elections, all you have to do is do a Google search. You will literally find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are in jail right now for election fraud, voter fraud, cheating in elections, doing various things. I mean, it was just like a couple of weeks before the election, there was a story came out about a woman and a little ring she was running that was engaged in putting together fake ballots. And she's in jail right now, along with her little group, her crew that she was working with. I mean, and there's thousands and thousands of people who have been charged with all sorts of violations of election law. To make the claim that there's no election fraud is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And little Marco is correct. In the case of Florida, I mean, the woman Sykes, or whatever, Skypes, whoever her name is, the woman running the show down there, has been told by the judge that she committed crimes in previous election years. She's a habitual offender. She should have been removed a long time ago. Look at what's going on out in California. There's a lot of hanky-panky that went on in the 2016 or 2018 midterms, just like there was a lot of hanky-panky that went on in I mean, my God, 2016? I mean, didn't they read the WikiLeaks emails? What happened to Bernie? What did they do to Trump? Try to do to Trump in 2016. We actually did it to him, just they weren't successful. It's every election. Have you ever heard about LBJ, how he won his first election? Man, oh man, this is just ridiculous to even have to comment on something like this. Tons and tons and tons of violations of the law in regards to elections in America and everywhere else on the planet. Elections have been rigged for as long as there have been elections. And to say that elections are rigged is a pretty broad general statement about rigging an entire election. Although that's been done too, but I'm saying that there's a lot of individual acts, instances in every single election, regardless of whether it's local, state, county, federal, U.S., Europe, doesn't matter. You're always going to have a certain amount, and it's like they tolerate a certain amount of election tampering, of election fraud, of violations of election law during every election. It's like there's like a tolerable amount of it that they put up with, simply because they simply cannot catch everybody. But what's going on down in Florida is just a case of massive incompetence, cheating. It's pretty obvious what's going on out in California. We can see what's going on out there. There's obviously a lot of problems. And the problem is when you live in these Democrat-controlled states and counties, when issue is taken with these types of irregularities, let's say, it finds its way into a court with a liberal judge who probably donated to one of the candidates, the liberal candidates that's running on the Democratic ticket. It's always been going on in America and everywhere else. So let's put that to bed. Let's just put that to rest completely. No one's buying it. I'm not buying it. And I've read the comments section here. I'm pretty familiar with my subscribers here on this channel. I know you guys aren't buying it. I know you guys aren't buying that. No way. We're not that stupid. Well, we have the loony left attorney in Maryland, Brian Frosh, who has filed a motion with the court in Maryland to declare Matthew Whitaker's appointment as acting AG unlawful. Well, this guy's an idiot, clearly. It doesn't really matter. I mean, he knows he's wrong. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of filing the lawsuit so that it can be reported on and then blasted all over the liberal media networks, because the lemmings who watch them will eat it up. And then they'll come back tomorrow and tune in to find out what happened. It's all about ratings. They don't even care about the issues. I'm telling you, they don't. These people get paid millions of dollars to lie to the lemmings. They don't give a damn. They're not affected by any of this. None of it. It's about getting them ratings so they can get that next contract, guaranteeing them millions of more dollars to sit and lie to the mind-washed, mind-numbed robots who tune into that crap every day, including on Fox. I understand that the Department of Justice is kind of getting tired of all this stuff, and it's, I don't know if it's a fact, but I've seen on a couple of news sites where the Department of Justice is going to release a statement sometime, either tomorrow, that would be Wednesday, or Thursday. They're going to release a statement laying out the case that the appointment of Acting Attorney General Whitaker is perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. I think they just want to put it all to bed. And they should. I mean, even Rodenstein said, yeah, it's perfectly legal, and I think he's a great pick, and he's got my 100% support. Even Rodenstein says it's perfectly legal, and he'd be the guy that would have the biggest beef with it. Him or Noel Francesco, and I haven't heard what he's had to say, but clearly the president, in a recess appointment, can appoint an acting attorney general for up to 210 days. Then he can get another 210 days if he wants. And I'll be honest with you folks, I think Trump interviewing people like Chris Christie and all these others is a bunch of window dressing. I honestly believe that Trump really wants Whitaker, but maybe there was people around him pressuring him, saying, well, that's, you're kind of reaching there, you got these other people probably in line, you got other career people probably have maybe better qualifications, this and that and the other thing, he could be controversial, blah, 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 all that. I think this is who Trump really wanted. And I think, for a couple different reasons, I think Trump may have, this is just my opinion, I don't know this, I'm just guessing, and I've not read this anywhere, it's just coming directly out of my own head. I think that he, after getting burned on so many cabinet appointments, I think it's very possible that Trump may have put Whitaker in there in a recess appointment just to give him a test drive and see how he does. And I think if Trump likes what he does, I think he could very well nominate him to be his permanent AG. I mean, if he's in there for 210 days or, for several months, and maybe after the first of the year, January, February, Trump says, yeah, I like Whitaker, I think he's doing a good job, I think he's my guy. He certainly could nominate Whitaker, and he wouldn't have any problem getting him through. Of course, right now, Trump would not appoint Whitaker because he'd be battling a hostile Senate. They would have to confirm him. But if he appoints him temporarily as an acting attorney general, then waits until after January 3rd, when the Senate will be a lot more favorable to Trump, then they would likely say, okay, well, if this is the guy you want, I see no problem with him, and he'll get the votes. Even if the Democrats steal another seat. We still got, right now, we're holding on to what looks like 52, maybe 53 seats, depending how it goes in Georgia, whether or not they steal that one or not. But if they don't steal Georgia, then we should have 53, I guess. And we're rid of Flake, and we're rid of Corker, and we're rid of course, Senator Magoo. So I think that Trump would probably feel pretty good about the fact that he could get Whitaker appointed with the new Senate after the first of the year, and that just might be exactly what he's doing. One of two things. Either he really is just wanting to have someone to fill in till he gets the guy he actually wants, or he's taking Whitaker for a test drive because he's been burned on so many other cabinet appointments, particularly Attorney General, really cost him with Jeff Sessions. Not because Jeff Sessions was necessarily a bad guy or working for the deep state. I don't believe any of that. I never have bought into that. Of course, I don't buy into the other theory either, that he was the silent stealth or whatever. But, you know, I think things are exactly what they look like. You know, I try not to, you know, I understand there's things, you know, that go on behind the scenes. I understand sometimes you have to read between the lines. You have to go deeper. You have to do all that kind of stuff. I get that. But sometimes I think people like to read way, way more into things than what's actually there. Sometimes things are pretty much are what they appear to be. And that's how I see the Sessions situation. He recused himself when he probably shouldn't have. I believe he shouldn't have. I'm not a legal expert, but I don't think he should have recused himself. But once it became obvious that this entire thing was a hoax, he should have came out, made a press conference, and said, look, it appears that now that we've got all this information, it appears this entire thing was a hoax. There was no Trump-Russia collusion. It was all a hoax manufactured by, unfortunately, some folks within the Department of Justice and the FBI, maybe the intel community, who were, quite honestly, went rogue. And so I'm going to now unrecuse myself, take full control of the situation. I'm going to be meeting with Uncle Bob, the executioner Mueller, to let him know that we now have this new evidence, and he probably needs to pack up the crew and leave. And then I'm immediately going to appoint a new special counsel to investigate what actually did happen in 2016. Now, see, that would have been the stealth Jeff Sessions that would have been something I could believe. So that's what should have happened. That's what should have happened. But it never did. And that's why he's gone. So, anyhow, that's kind of my thoughts on that topic. Let's move on. Ocasio Cortez staged a sit-in Pelosi's office today with that 30 or so Democrats and some other paid activists about environmental issues, about the fact that they want a bill on a green energy bill or a green bill or some kind of bill. What's crazy about this is that Ocasio Cortez, who has now apparently become the leader of this anti-Pelosi, anti-corporate Democrat group in the House, she's become their leader. There's about 35 to 40 of them, and they decided to stage their first throw their first temper tantrum right in the office of Nancy Pelosi. Now, Pelosi comes out and makes a statement that, oh, this is great. Yes, I'm perfectly happy to have them do their protest in my office. This is wonderful. I encourage it. I can assure you that Nancy Pelosi was not happy. She is not happy. She, I'm sure, does not appreciate this kind of activity, I guess we could say, because it's not in her favor. I mean, they protested in her office for a reason. They're not on her team. So I'm not sure what Nancy Pelosi's strategy is here, other than she doesn't want to piss these people off. She needs their votes in about a week or so to be made speaker. But as soon as she gets that power, she's coming for every one of these people, man. She's coming for every one of them. They're going to regret. I mean, you can make the challenge to Pelosi, but if you fail to take her out as speaker, Ocasio Cortez and all these 36 or so other freshman Democrats, or some of them been around for a little while, but all these who are part of this little Ocasio Cortez group, they're going to get severe payback for challenging Pelosi. She doesn't like to be challenged, so she's playing it off right now, but you can be sure that smoke is rolling out her ears. She is not happy about this. She knows these are the very people that are going to challenge her leadership. So you can bet she's putting together a plan right now for them, and I don't think they're going to like what's going to happen, because I think she's probably going to be able to muscle her way in and stay in there. I would be very surprised if they could knock her out, and you'll have two or three other people fighting for that power. They'll be split. I just don't think you can do it. You know, Nancy's been around a long time. She knows how this game is played. She controls the money. She's got the backing of the establishment. You're going up against some pretty strong headwinds there. Now, I'd love to see it happen, I guess, but I don't know. Pelosi is like a gift. Having her as speaker could actually pay huge dividends and I think Trump wants her there. I'd like her there. I mean, if the Democrats got to be in charge, I prefer to have Pelosi and these same idiots heading up all these committees because they're all fools and they'll all help our cause, especially when you look at what their plans are. So, anyway, just kind of funny that Ocasio-Cortez, her and her group chose Pelosi's office to have their sit-in, to have their first protest, and this is what you can expect from these people because they haven't figured out that they're now legislators and not agitators. They still think they're agitators. They don't know what a legislator is. They're not familiar with that. They have no experience. They're lacking in so many areas of fundamental common sense that they'll never really figure this out. So the next thing they'll be doing a sit-in for in Pelosi's office is for Medicare for all. Can't wait for that one. It's going to be a lot of fun watching Pelosi try to manage this herd of wildcats. I'll be honest with you, man. This is going to be a lot of humor involved here. And I think this is ultimately going to lead in a split. There already is a split, but it's going to expose the division within the Democratic Party, especially after the first of the year, after like February, March, once they get settled in, because that's when all these Democrat presidential hopefuls are going to come out. There are already a lot of them going to Iowa. What's his name? Bozo O'Rourke has already been to Iowa. So a lot of these people are already going there. So they're each going to try to find a niche within the Democratic platform to carve out a niche to get their particular group. So they're all going to end up, like Warren will have her little group, Beto will have his group, Ocasio-Cortez will type of Democrat socialist, whoever that is, maybe Bernie, I don't know. They'll have their little group. You're going to get all these factions breaking up as they all plot out their niche for the Democratic nomination. The whole time the Rotten Reverend Clinton's going to be sitting back watching these people beat each other to death and fight over money that isn't there so that she can come in the last minute. And of course, over the next year and a half or so, as we lead up to that point, you are going to start seeing all these stories that the Right Reverend Clinton's henchmen will be pumping out into the press. In fact, there was just one that came out yesterday showing that 75% of Democrats love Hillary. 75% of Democrats love Hillary. I swear that was a story that came out 2 days ago. And you're going to see more and more and more of this as Hillary sends her people out there to plant these stories. So as all these other Democrats are fighting to be the person to take center stage toward the Democratic nomination, the Right Reverend Clinton's going to have her people who own the corporate media sitting back pumping these stories out about how popular Hillary is, how much more qualified she is, how this is her time, how she's changed her message, she's flipped the script, she's got it now, she gets it now. She gets it now. She's finally woke up. She knows what people really want. She knows what to say. She knows how to play herself. So this is all going to be playing itself out over the next 18 months or so, and it's going to be absolutely a riot to watch and report on and to be entertained by or with. Yes. So let's move on. Well, we have that idiot John Kasich who went on The View. He went on The View, and of course they love John Kasich on The View. Oh, yeah. They love him. But even Kasich was forced to admit that Trump is so popular in the Republican Party that he probably would have no shot whatsoever at having any chance at all of taking down Trump in a primary, or that Trump would even participate. Because it would be a joke, actually. And Kasich realizes, he even said that. But he said that he might go, it might be an opportunity as an independent. So what? He's going to try to get the 10% of Republicans that don't really like Trump? And that number will probably be smaller by the time 2020 comes around, as more people will gravitate toward him to try to hold off a Democratic president. And I actually don't think this is such a bad idea because, Kasich appeals to a lot of people on the left. He could very well, if the Right Reverend Clinton succeeds in getting the nomination, and I'm not sure she will. I'm absolutely sure she'll try. I'm not sure she'll get it, but I'm sure she'll try. If she were successful to pull that off, and John Kasich throws his hat in the ring, it will literally be Democrats who can't stand the Right Reverend Clinton who will flee to John Kasich. He will cost Democrat votes. He will help Trump win by an even bigger margin. He may suck off a couple percent of, I guess we can use the phrase suck off. Yeah, Kasich can suck off a few Republicans, anti-Trump Republicans, if there's any left by then, that'll show their face, like Max Boot and some of these people. Yeah, he can get a handful of these old never say Trump neocons. He might even get Romney's endorsement. Who knows? But mostly, he could actually pull more Democrats. He could pull more away from Democrats than he could from Trump, if everything stacks out correctly and the Rotten Reverend Clinton is a nominee. It'll be interesting to watch. I think he's blowing smoke. I don't think he'll do it. I think he may do it, but only for a publicity stunt to write a book or whatever. He's probably headed back to Wall Street's probably where he's headed. Let's not forget, when John Kasich got tossed out of office last time, where did he go? Lehman Brothers. And what was the first bank to fail that caused the collapse of all the other banks, or near collapse of the other banks that caused the big massive banking crisis? It was what was done at Lehman Brothers. Kasich, John Kasich at Lehman Brothers was the first domino that fell that nearly took down the entire credit system. I don't know how many of you have been paying attention to what's this little interplay that went on between Trump and Emmanuel Macron, who is now falling like a rock in the polls. He's very, very unpopular. You know, these people are like sharks. You know, as soon as Merkel got taken down and had to admit she's not going to run for her party's leadership anymore, immediately you saw Emmanuel Macron like step to the forefront. He wants to try to replace Merkel. He's trying to jump in there. I mean, she's not even buried yet. I mean, she's still breathing, and he's already trying to move in and occupy her territory. Macron is going for that. At the same time, he's driving his polls down in his own country in the tank. I mean, he's really tanking bad. He's in the high 20s, like 28, 29%, and things are getting worse, not better for Macron. Then he makes this statement about, you know, patriotism nationalism is the opposite of patriotism, and you can tell that really pissed Trump off, because I don't know how many of you saw that little compilation video of like 4 or 5 more times after he made that statement when he was together with Trump, and the media were interviewing, or they were, you know, there. He kept trying to get close to Trump, trying to put his arm around Trump, kept trying to tap Trump's leg, kept trying to get Trump's attention, get Trump to look at him. Trump was absolutely stone-faced, wouldn't even look at Macron, and wouldn't even get close to him. He was like moving away from him, and, you know, clearly Trump giving the massive, massive cold shoulder. Very, very obvious. Very obvious. He is not happy with Macron. And then he gets back to the States, and he's asked about this, and he says basically, well, it's time for Macron to either put up or shut up. And he wants an EU army. Yes, that's right, the EU army. Farage was talking about this 4 or 5 years ago. He said, oh yeah, they want to build an EU army. And why is that? Because they want to be able to use force to, if anyone tries to leave the EU, to use military force to keep them from doing so. Literally, we'll use military force. That's why they want an EU army, not to protect the EU from, I mean, they're always like, well, we need an EU army to protect us from the United States. That's funny. You know, yeah, based on that, I could almost see pulling out a NATO and telling them to pound sand. I mean, it's just unbelievable what you see coming from the Europeans. I guess a lot of you are old enough to remember when they had the ban the French fries thing, because we got mad at France years ago, and they had like wanted to ban French fries or something. It's just it's hilarious. We're heading in that same general direction with France. I mean, we've been on the up and downs with them for years and years. They're a very nasty group of people, and we have this history that you think would overcome a lot of that, but a lot of that gets lost in the discussion when, you know, current events pop up and people forget about those things. But anyway, Macron is doing himself a lot of damage. He's taken on the wrong guy at the wrong place at the wrong time. He's got a lot of problems anyway, right along with that fairy up in Canada, Justin Trudeau, the Cinder fella up there in Canada. Well, my friends, I have sent an email and made a phone call to my local congressman over the past couple of days to let them know I want him to support Jim Jordan for minority leader. They'll be having that vote tomorrow, or as you're watching this video today, Wednesday. You may still have time. It's early in the morning if you're watching this video to send a quick email to your member of Congress or a phone call to let them know. You probably have to call their D.C. office now, not their local office, because they'll be in D.C. for the vote. Because tomorrow is when they vote, or Wednesday, I should say, today, is the day that they'll vote for the minority leader. We don't want Kevin McCarthy. It's possible that Kevin McCarthy won't get quite enough votes and that Jim Jordan will get enough votes to challenge. There could be a standoff there. And that means that they could bring in a compromise candidate between them, and that would likely be Steve Scalise. We'd much rather have Jim Jordan, but if you can't get Jordan, Scalise is not bad. We just don't want Kevin McCarthy, and hopefully we won't get Kevin McCarthy. That almost guarantees us, dooms us to failure for the next 2 years and beyond, because he's Paul Ryan's protege, and he's not a straight shooter. Well, it looks like the Attorney General in Vermont has now decided to drop the case against Jane Sanders, Bernie Sanders' wife. Of course, Jane Sanders ran an elaborate bank fraud scheme which destroyed and bankrupted the college that she was the head of. Then she walked away with a $200,000 severance package after being forced to resign. Of course, Jane has a get-out-of-jail-free card in the liberal state of Vermont because, of course, she is a Democrat. And in fact, a socialist Democrat, which is really good, extra bonus points in Vermont for you. So it looks like another Democrat criminal is going to walk, despite the overwhelming evidence of her crimes, of her guilt for these crimes. So Bernie and Jane cash in another $200,000. No telling how much they made in kickbacks on the deal. There you go. That's justice in America for a Democrat. None. Had this been a Republican, you'd already been in jail. Right now. Remember Blagojevich? Rod Blagojevich. Who got railroaded, by the way. And should wish Trump would pardon him. Everybody keeps telling me this stuff's killing me. Sure tastes good. Been drinking it for like 40 years now. Hasn't killed me yet. Alrighty. The steal is still on in Georgia. It appears that the 2 Obama-appointed liberal judges have ruled in favor of Stacey Abrams. She's a real jewel. So they're going to count all the votes. They want to count all the votes. Isn't that funny? I've been hearing that for the last 2 or 3 days coming out of liberal media outlets, from left-wing politicians, left-wing pundits. Count all the votes. What's wrong with that? What are they not saying? No, what they should be saying is count all the legal votes. All the legal votes. But if we count all the legal votes, Democrats lose. So we have to just count all the votes. That's what that really means. Because the way the Democrats look at it, they can't win fair and square. They must cheat. But because their cause is so righteous, they're justified in cheating. And then lying about cheating. Because the ends justify the means to a Democrat. It's as simple as that. I mean, this stuff is not complicated. Let's not make, chess into checkers here. The Right Reverend Clinton's lawyers will be in court tomorrow in the case of the Right Reverend Clinton's emails. Of course, the Justice Department lawyers, the State Department lawyers, and the Right Reverend Clinton's personal lawyers will also be there defending her. Now, this is something that's been going on. It's a Judicial Watch action. There's actually 2 things going on with Judicial Watch. Both of them have good judges ruling over the cases. This one here is a good judge, and of course T.S. Eliot, or whatever his name is, the other judge, is hearing the other. The other case is regarding the Benghazi emails. This case is regarding the Clinton's emails on her private server. And the judge is ruling in a positive way, but the problem is you've got the Right Reverend Clinton's lawyers, you've got the State Department lawyers, you've got the Department of Justice lawyers all defending her, not so much to defend the Right Reverend Clinton, although they're doing that as well, but to defend themselves. And so they keep throwing up delays and roadblocks and legal maneuvers, which they can do for now until hell freezes over. They know that Hillary may live, another 10, 15 years? They can easily drag this stuff out for 10 or 15 years. They can keep doing this stuff for year after year after year, and then eventually, even if the Right Reverend Clinton loses, they'll just go to the appeals court, and they'll battle that for 10 years. They think that the legal efforts that they're making to defend the crimes will outlive the rotten Reverend Clinton. And they're probably right. So I admire Judicial Watch for their efforts, but quite honestly, even with good judges, when you run into the deep state, the Department of Justice, the State Department, and all those people, unless you get an attorney general who's willing to get involved and personally involved and tell the people under him to comply with the judge's orders, this judge in this particular case that we're talking about now, of the rotten Reverend Clinton emails, has already admitted in the judge's statement to the court was that he was lied to. He was lied to about whether or not the DOJ and the State Department could produce what was subpoenaed by Judicial Watch and ordered by the court. They said, well, we can't produce the stuff, we can't find it, we don't have it, it's not blah, 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 blah. And the judge basically found out they were lying, and it says right there in the judge's own statement and the transcripts. Fitton read them right there on YouTube. The judge's actual words. We say, yeah, well, you lied to me. You lied to me. And so, does he hold him in contempt? Anything else? No, not really. It just goes on and 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 on. That's how it'll go. Forever. So it's a valiant effort by Judicial Watch, but it will bear no fruit. But the idea was to get Hillary Clinton to personally have to testify. She was able to avoid that, so they said, okay, well, you can send her questions and she has to answer the questions. Of course, her lawyers answered all the questions, and they lied on most of the answers. But the idea was to get Hillary Clinton in there, but they're never going to get Hillary Clinton in there. Her lawyers in the State Department and the DOJ will make sure that never happens, and they'll continue to drag this thing out until hell freezes over, or until Hillary Clinton achieves room temperature. And if things get really, really bad and they think that she might expose them, they might arrange for her to achieve room temperature. What good is she to them anymore now anyway? She's a liability. Once you become a liability to the deep state, I don't care who you are. You are a person who may be a dead man walking. Well, the recount in Palm Beach has been extended for 5 more days. Why not 5 more weeks? Why not 5 more months? Why not 5 more years, 5 more decades, 5 millennial? Why not? What does it matter? I mean, that election has been botched so bad, there's no way back. The correct solution to this situation, the correct thing that should have been done if you actually had, but of course you could expect that the judge ruling on this is probably a liberal Democrat who probably donated to the campaign of the Democratic officials in that county. Otherwise, what should have been done is what normally is done, is that they have a deadline, they don't meet it, the judge says, okay, that's it. Turn in whatever number you had 30 minutes after the polls closed, and that's it. That's it. Done. Election certified. That's how it normally goes. But we're not living in normal times, and we have, unfortunately, the liberals, Obama has stacked the damn courts all across the country with corrupt, liberal, left-wing activists in robes who are now trying to take over the country through the legal system. That's what Trump is trying to reverse. He understands this quite well. The Gateway Pundit is reporting that Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Hillary donor posse has emails between Sam Clovis and acting AG Whitaker, because apparently Whitaker worked with Clovis at some point. It was during the time of the presidential campaign, and I guess that gave Uncle Bob the Executioner the authority to subpoena or get his hands on any emails between Clovis and Whitaker. So you can expect that Mueller will pass that information on to one of his operatives, probably a friend of the rotten Reverend Clinton, who will then get her goon squad out, and they will try to use that against Whitaker, and whatever he has will end up being leaked in the New York Times or Washington Post, and they will use that to attack Whitaker to try to drive him out of town. The salsa invasion, of course, is continuing to move toward the border. Of course, this is the salsa invasion. It's 95% healthy young males. Of course, we know there's some criminals in the group. They are apparently going to be moving toward Tijuana and trying to enter through California. This is going to set up a fairly interesting situation. We'll see what happens there. You can bet that the liberal media and the Democrats will take full advantage of this opportunity.